Hello and welcome back to the Tyre Straights Podcast, the most unprofessional motorsport podcast you can find on the internet. I am your host, Doots, and my other host here.
Hello, I am Scobbert, and my nose is a bit runny tonight.
That's just deeply depressing. You should maybe get some tissues or something.
I've got some. I just preface by asking the dear viewer to excuse any sniffling, because it will sound like I have just done like 5 lines off my table.
Fair enough. And we are here to discuss and review the Japanese Grand Prix, which has just passed us this weekend. What are our initial thoughts?
I definitely think it's interesting, and obviously it has changed the current picture of the championship. It's obviously not completely swung it in another direction, but it's obviously given us a new championship leader and has definitely reinforced the idea that we are going to be getting a Mercedes battle between the two drivers. So yeah, what about you?
Yeah, very fair. It's definitely created quite an interesting scenario within the Mercedes team, with the two teammates both performing quite well. Lots of some interesting racing, some things that need discussing, some incidents, some people that have done shockingly well and shockingly bad. So we'll just have to get into it. But before we do that, just like to say, if you enjoy this podcast, then please follow us on our Instagram account, where we ask for hot takes from you lot. We post our predictions and do things along that sort of line, and do other random bits of content when we feel like it. And also remember to follow or subscribe to us on either Spotify or YouTube, where this podcast is posted, or both.
100 YouTube subscribers, and we'll make an OnlyFans together.
The content of which is yet to be discussed. Right, now let's start before we go with the main course of the episode. Let's go for the general news and what has happened this week for motorsport.
So this week we've had a bit of a Verstappen sweep in the news. First of all, it was was it a press conference prior to the Japanese Grand Prix?
It was media day. It was media day.
That was it, of course, yes. And basically, the headline from that was Max Verstappen, who recognised a journalist who'd asked him about the Russell incident. I believe that was from the last year. He basically asked to have the guy removed from the interview. What's your take on that?
So yeah, it was the journalist who asked about the Russells. I think personally, it is inordinately petty.
Yeah,
I think it's immensely petty to make a journalist not allowed to do his job and stay in the conference because you personally hold a grudge against him for just doing his job last year.
Yeah.
Like, that is a full... It's not like it was a personal attack. Like, yes, it was obviously, as journalists do, it was pushing the driver's buttons. Their idea is to try and get some kind of reaction so that they can have a story. But it was very much, there was an incident that happened that Max caused and was involved with. He was asked about the incident in a slightly snitty way, had a snitty response, and now has completely halted an interview in the following year just because the guy has shown up again. It is incredibly petty of him, in my opinion.
I would be inclined to agree, because the thing is as well, like, the expectation is we all know that journalists and media are leeches. You know that they are parasites, and you know they're going to try and dig deep to get a reaction. The fact that you've given one is the reason that we're even talking about it at all, because we never really think about the media day. That's not something that, obviously, aside from generating some news and maybe getting a bit of trash talking going, it's hardly ever worth sort of touching upon. But yeah, it's made headlines because it has basically flagged up the conduct of the individual in question, obviously that being Max Verstappen in this incident. And yeah, it's just it's kind of got people back on the do they not like or do they like Max kind of thing, because I know that, like, aside from obviously the diehard fans who are for or against Max, F1 fans generally, aside from them, have kind of flip-flopped between whether they like him or not, depending on, I don't know, the weather. So I do think it's not helping him at all in that regard.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, certainly in like the F1 online community, who are very, very reactionary with Max.
Yeah.
Whatever the latest thing he has done is their sentiment on him. So if he's done something that could be seen as being a nuisance, then he's the worst person in the world and he needs to leave the sport now. But if he's done something thoughtful or put in an impressive drive, then he's the greatest driver to ever exist and should be praised like a god. However, I think that regardless, even if, like, one of the big things, a lot of people like how he doesn't mesh with the media, and he does like to kind of act standoffish
Yeah.
towards, like, the journalists and interviews and stuff, and that's fine, but singling out one guy, you can very easily just avoid the question. If he asks anything, it is so petty.
I do feel like it's taken that whole sort of attitude to the extreme a little bit.
It's a little too far, but also I I would say it's petty. I wouldn't say anything needs to be done about it. It's not
No.
like it needs to be sanctioned or whatever.
No, I'd agree. It's
Like,
just
that's ridiculous.
it's something that we'll like generally forget about unless we're talking about Max and his conduct specifically in the future. So like,
Oh yeah,
this whole thing will sort of like blow over soon
it will
enough.
blow over. It will
But,
blow over. Like it's not a big deal.
It's funny you mentioned something about how this is gonna be things how ugh, this is gonna be how things are.
Neither of us are getting
God,
our words right today.
Sorry, it's been a long one. I haven't been I've been awake for too long. But yeah, it's funny how you said that's gonna be how things are until Max leaves the sport, because the other sort of big piece of Max Verstappen news was from ESPN F1 reported it yesterday that following obviously the not exactly a terrible result at the Japanese Grand Prix, but by no means a good one. Verstappen has basically sort of hinted at considering retirement at the end of the season. Basically, he admitted that he was not, well, quote unquote, not enjoying the sport at present, and I do think obviously his clashes in regards to the new regulations and his very what's the word that can sort of best describe it, because he's a bit standoffish, like you said before, but with the FIA as well regarding the new regulations. And I think that attitude is obviously, I think, the main driving factor behind this right now. So, do you have anything to sort of add to that?
The main thing I'd add is kind of just that I think a large chunk of the not enjoying it is the fact that he is not performing well. I don't think that's all of it. I'm certain that he would probably still have complaints even if he was at the front, because he is a driver at heart.
Yeah.
But there is also definitely an aspect of there were no complaints when, like in previous regulations, that people were complaining about and struggling with and saying that this needs to change and X, Y, Z when he was at the front winning everything. But now that he's not, he seems to be the main one that's driving this new regulations bad. And there are definitely things to question and
absolutely.
that need tweaking about the regulations, but I think he's being a bit
There's
a bit too reactionary.
There's definitely some very valid criticisms of this current set of regulations that I have obviously seen a lot of drivers make something of. But I think obviously with Max being one of the most vocal and one of the most sort of the word is aggressive in his stance when I say that, like the way he approaches it. He's very passionate, obviously, about motorsports. He Max Verstappen is a racing machine. He loves racing. He does it for the love of the game, and he has always said like he's not trying to like break records. He doesn't care if he wins, 10 championships in Formula One. He is a classic case of doing it for the love of the game. That's why he's obviously looking to race in things like the Nürburgring 24. Things like that.
Yeah, a lot of the endurance he's looking at.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I won't be surprised if he does retire, even if it's just to make a full-time move to like maybe World Endurance Championship or something. Obviously, it was floated around a little while ago that him, Sebastian Vettel, and Fernando Alonso could team up at the 24 Hours Le Mans in the future, and I think that would be quite awesome to see. But obviously, it's all well and good speculating until then. But
True. I do just want to add a final thing, very brief. It's that Verstappen, this isn't the first time he's threatened retirement. I feel like he does it every other weekend. So it's kind of taking it with a grain of salt, but there is always the chance. And as he gets older, he does now have kids. He's especially not enjoying these regulations. There's a higher chance, I think, now of him actively backing away from the sport.
Yeah.
In which case, I think he'll go to probably. I want to say WC. I think he'd do.
I think that's probably they'll be eager to have him. Obviously, any of the teams will want to hire him.
Well, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it's the GT3 or the hypercar category, but Merc is entering one of those two in WEC next year, and with Verstappen already pairing up with Mercedes for like some of the GT3 events, like the Nürburgring and whatnot, it would make sense to move him straight over there.
Yeah.
But we know one of the cars would just be Verstappen.com brand racing.
I could definitely see that. But
yeah,
sort of as a rebuttal to what Max said about the regulations more generally, because one thing Max said after the Chinese Grand Prix in an interview was that the cars are more like Mario Kart. That's a quote from him. Lewis Hamilton has been rather vocal in the fact that he disagrees, and he actually stated that this is how this is the quote. He says, "This is how racing should be." Basically, and also he then went on to say that the Chinese Grand Prix is the best racing that he can remember. So obviously he's a more staunch supporter of these new regulations, and I think personally that does also kind of come back to what you said about Max a minute ago, where when Max is not having a good time, he complains. And obviously now that it's the same with obviously Lewis last year, you saw the light actually like drain from his eyes. And now that he's doing well again, fighting for the top 5, maybe even podiums, he's having less of a good time. More of a good time. Sorry. So I can definitely see how that will influence the way that they view it as well. But what do you think about what Lewis has said? And who do you think you agree with more right now? That's what I'll throw out there.
I don't agree with the Mario Kart thing. I feel like there's been a lot of people throwing that around with the whole battery and boost and whatever, but F1 has always had gimmicks to stop like racing being boring. Like always, no matter the generation. And if you point at a generation where it's like, okay, they didn't have a gimmick, it's probably because there were 4 overtakes in a race, and it was usually because someone slammed into a wall. The reason DRS was introduced, which was a gimmick, like DRS was a complete gimmick, but everyone got used to it, and that's why like people aren't treating this whole battery scenario like it is some massive ruining thing, but it is no different to when DRS was introduced. Like it's just another thing to help keep the racing closer. I do think that I've said before, there are issues with it. Needs changing. Thankfully, there are supposedly going to be some reviews of the rule set, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I'm closer to agreeing with Lewis than Max. But I wouldn't say this is how racing should be. I would just say that this is currently enjoyable racing.
All right, I would just like to add to that as well, that I think, aside from obviously people that are more forward-thinking, I think the majority of fans are quite set in their ways, because I think they get used to something, and they kind of like the status quo. And obviously when that changes, when we get new regulations that change the way certain things are done, obviously when DRS was introduced, it could be used at any point in the lap, rather than in certain specific points, certain specific zones, I should say. So I think definitely it's a case of people will begin to get used to this new set of regs. Obviously, they were used to what we had before. The beginning of the ground effect era was also fraught with controversy because obviously the Mercedes nearly crippled Lewis Hamilton in the same way that the Aston Martin is now nearly crippling Fernando Alonso.
Like the porpoising was horrendous, and you've got to remember that we're just off the back of the turbo, not turbo hybrid era, the ground effect era. And the thing with the ground effect era is that it was 4 seasons, and 2 of them were really not good to watch. One of them was really enjoyable, but the championship had no weight. And then one of them was good with a good championship, and that was the final year.
Yeah.
So, like, half of the regulation series was people complaining all the porpoising is too bad, and Max is leading everything, and aerodynamics are too strong. Like, there were good races in 2023, undoubtedly, and it was good to watch behind the pack. But there was one team that had won above all else. Merc were being shaken to pieces.
It was basically a lot of like championship stuff I saw as well was it was just the championship but disregarding Red Bull. You know,
for sure.
Obviously Red Bull were an unstoppable machine for the 22 to 25 period. Not necessarily 25, but 25. Definitely until at least the sort of midpoint of 2024, they had the strongest car without any question of a doubt, you know.
For sure.
But yes, with all that said about the regulations, we can now sort of move along to the meat and veg of this episode and get into the Japanese Grand Prix. Do you have any sort of general thoughts before we sort of get into a bit of a deeper dive?
General thoughts, not particular. I will definitely talk about it soon.
Yeah.
But I just want to run through quali and the results in that. Quali was incredibly boring. It was genuinely the most dull it has been in a while.
I would say probably the worst one this season.
It's definitely the worst one this season. Probably the worst one since, like, I want to say early like turbo hybrid era,
really?
where the Mercs would just shoot off ahead. Like, it was so unbelievably dull in my opinion. But on the whole, you had Kimi Antonelli taking pole position, followed by George Russell and Oscar Piastri coming up in third.
Yes.
Following back the other massive ones, Max Verstappen down in 11th, being knocked out by Arvid Lindblad in 10th.
That was crazy.
Quite
that was
impressive,
a crazy moment. I remember watching that and going, "Oh shit."
Yeah. But no, on the whole, boring session, results were fine, nothing much of note, and unless you've got anything to say, I'd say we move on to the race results.
No, not really. No thoughts from the qualifying at all. Like I say, the main thing that I kind of took away from it was the Lindblad pushing Verstappen out, and I thought that was kind of crazy. But that was basically the only thing that was noteworthy.
Of note, it was the only thing of note. Everything else was.
So,
and it's also they lost Kimi Antonelli's pole lap.
Oh yeah,
that's actually something worth noting. So, like, Antonelli did 2 laps in Q3. The first one was the actual lap that got him pole position, but they lost it. Like, they could not get the footage for it, and so the second lap that he did was slower. So Kimi's actual pole lap for the weekend is lost media. Like, it is gone. It's ridiculous.
But with all that said, obviously qualifying leaving a bit to be desired. But just before we get into the details of the race, would you mind just quickly giving us a quick top 10 rundown of the finishing order?
Of course. So the winner of the Japanese Grand Prix was Kimi Antonelli for Mercedes. The podium rounded off by Oscar Piastri in second and Charles Leclerc in third. Russell following up in fourth, followed by Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton, his fellow countryman. Seventh for Pierre Gasly, his third seventh place in a row, with Max Verstappen behind constantly for the whole race. In ninth, we have Liam Lawson for a couple more points for Racing Bulls, and rounding off the top 10, we have got Esteban Ocon. And that's how the finishing order played out. Now, I want to start this with in my opinion, the biggest moment of the full race, which is the safety car. Essentially, after a large incident that we will talk about later, there was a safety car that was timed at the most inopportune moment for the race lead contenders, Piastri and Russell. And it massively benefited Antonelli. So what I would like to ask you is, do you think that the safety car completely gifted this win to Antonelli, given that he already had pace?
Yeah, I was going to say, just based on that, what you said a second ago, I wouldn't say completely, but I definitely think it was a contributing factor. I think without it, he wouldn't have been the race winner, but I don't think he would have not been... I think he would have still been like P2 or 3. because he like you say, he clearly had pace. He was obviously the fastest in qualifying, and for certain points during the race, he was the fastest on track as well. It was more a case of being given that perfect opportunity to take the lead, and then just drive away after that. Basically, was that definitely was what I think kept him at the front of the field afterwards. Without it, like I say, I don't think we'd have seen Kimi Antonelli win. But at the same time, I definitely think he had pace, and I do think it is based on that. It is a worthy victory, you know. Like it's not like gifted. I wouldn't say it was definitely. No. You could still sort of evaluate it as, you know, well done, Kimi. That was great.
Yeah, like he still got pole position. He still got the fastest lap. He still made a quite large gap between like his win and then Piastri in second place.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it was fair, and essentially he'd fallen back after a bad start, and then just as Russell was pitting, as soon as like Russell was done with the being in the pits, the safety car coming out obviously massively benefits Antonelli, gives him a ton of like position saved and puts him in the lead.
I would just say, I feel like it's less of a case of the safety car benefiting Antonelli and more so of it
just
like screwing over.
Russell.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say.
Like Russell and Piastri.
I think it was kind of they were in the pits as it came out. I think it was equally, you know, an opportunity for Kimi as much as it was one that was lost for second and third place, Russell and Piastri. But obviously, you did say, and I was going to mention this as well, the race start for Antonelli. He got he got wheel spin and dropped, I think, what was it, 6 places off the line, which is obviously dreadful.
Yeah.
But what I will say is I was really impressed with the race start from Oscar Piastri. And
that was fantastic. Absolutely launched forward.
Yeah, I'd like to get on to Piastri and McLaren if you have no more to say about Kimi's win.
No, I don't have much more to say about the safety car incident. So McLaren, out of nowhere.
That was especially considering that they were possibly the most vocal team that was opposing the race start procedure. Obviously, we were expecting the Ferraris to be quick off the line, which they were, but Piastri, after passing in the process of dropping back Kimi Antonelli, he absolutely rocketed into the lead. It was crazy. And I mean, I think qualifying made it very clear who the stronger McLaren was this week. And I think it was definitely great for us to see Oscar Piastri actually start a race in 2026.
Well, it's not just that. I'm pretty sure that Piastri has out-qualified Lando at all 3 Grand Prix. So
I more just mean the start, being able to start the race, having a stronger weekend on the whole.
But the fact that like Piastri finally starting a Grand Prix and putting it in second straight off the bat is like brilliant, and it would have been great to actually see what he could have done at the past tracks.
Yeah, I feel like it would be. I think he could be having, if he had started the last 2 races, he'd easily be top 3 in the championship right now.
Yeah.
So at least based on the pace just from this race alone, and obviously, like you say, with qualifying as well in the previous races. So But at the same time,
I'd be a bit more hesitant because like the Ferraris have had decent pace.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You can't take that away. They just had a bit more of an off weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, Leclerc still putting it in third. Hamilton was in 6th, so it's not too far off.
But what I was also going to mention as well, in P5 and the finishing order was Lando Norris. So the 2 McLarens both finished in the top 5, one of which obviously P2. So it's a good sign of things to come for McLaren, who obviously weren't the strongest team at the first 2 races. I mean, for both of them, they were only running a single car anyway during the actual race. Through I was going to say through no fault of their own, but in the last race, it was car issues more so. But that's obviously not a driver error, is what I was trying to say. But yeah, I think it's interesting to see where McLaren is going to stack up now, because they've suddenly had this like gust of wind behind them, where I think I might just also be waffling because Piastri was on the podium, but at the same time, I mean, Lando's already been scoring top 5s this season, but definitely strong result for McLaren this race, and I think it could be a sign of things to come, hopefully.
currently it's good showing that when they do actually manage to start, that they are able to have some pace. Good on starts now, because if you remember back during like preseason testing,
Yeah.
the McLarens were like completely stalling and failing on start procedure. So it's good to see that they've really turned it around.
I would just like to say, though, before we move along, that they do still have a bit of work to do. Obviously, having only one car running for 2 out of 3 races so far has hurt them in the championship. Where they should be fighting with Ferrari this season, they're currently about they are
44 points behind.
Yeah, I would say they're 44. They're on nearly the exact half amount of points as Ferrari. Obviously, Ferrari are on 90 points and McLaren on 46. So yeah, McLaren are basically halfway behind Ferrari when they realistically should be battling with them in the championship.
Also, speaking of which, now that I'm just looking at the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull behind Haas and Alpine.
I know.
That's heinous.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
But yeah, McLaren, it's a good upwards trajectory from here, hopefully. But at the same time, there's, like I say, much more to be done before they can consider themselves properly in the battle. I mean, as of right now, Mercedes are 45 points ahead of Ferrari. So there are, 45, 44 points either way between Merc, McLaren and Ferrari. So as much as Ferrari is kind of out of the picture when it comes to fighting Mercedes at this current moment, obviously I hope that'll change. It's kind of the same story for McLaren, where they've got work to be done to be able to get an actual, fight for the championship.
And I mean, we've also got to think that this is like still only 3 races in. There are 19 more Grand Prix and 5 more sprints that points can be made up.
Well, 17 more Grand Prix.
Oh yeah. No, 19.
Yeah, well, we've had 3, 19 plus... Oh yeah, shit, I'm fucking...
Yeah, 19.
Like I said, long day. I can't believe I'm making a fool of myself on the internet.
No. It's fine, we can cut this bit out, even though we usually can't be bothered.
Yeah, it's going in.
It'll be fine.
I need to be held accountable for my severe mental illness. But yes. Oh dear.
Now,
can you move it along? I don't want to let that hang.
Sorry. Moving on to the next point, and this is going to be quite a hefty one, I think, because this is where we're going to be talking about the some of the issues with the regulations.
Serious face.
There was a Titanic, decently heavy crash on lap 20, I believe it was, where Ollie Behrman was trying to overtake Franco Colapinto, who was currently harvesting battery at the time, with a difference of, I believe it was about 20 kilometers an hour between the two. And in the process of avoiding, Behrman had to swing to the side, hit the grass, and lost it, and went fully into the barrier. It was a 50G crash. The experience, you could see him limping out of the car. Thankfully,
yeah, that was kind of hard to watch. The limp,
nothing was broken. Injured. Yeah, I think it was a contusion in his leg that he had
in his knee. Yeah,
in his knee. Yeah, but thankfully there is 5 weeks for him to rest up and recover. But hopefully he's all doing fine, because that was quite a nasty crash.
Yeah.
But it is worth discussing because of this what could change in the regulations to avoid crashes like that, because if cars are going to be harvesting battery through all sorts of different parts of the lap, you're going to have cars that are going a good 20 kilometers an hour slower than ones that could be full sending it.
Yeah, I'd like to quickly add to that, because I saw it was a statement earlier from Lando Norris, he's obviously one of the more vocal supporters of these new regulations, but he still has got his own criticisms, and this one being that the battery can be funky. Obviously, like you say, with the speed difference between cars that are harvesting battery and cars that aren't, he also basically said how at certain points, even when he didn't want to, he'd basically lunge ahead of another car because of the charge in the battery, which would then set himself up poorly, and he'd get immediately re-overtaken. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's obviously an issue that's being pulled up by several drivers now, like I say.
Mm.
But I think one of the big things that I've kind of seen is on like the online discourse regarding the crash is people basically saying the regulations are too dangerous. And one thing that I've seen floated around, which I think is a bit dramatic, but at the same time, it's, kind of damning, as it seems to represent a lot of what public opinion is regarding these new set of regulations, is they basically said does someone have to die for these regulations to, change for an amendment? And like I say, I think it's a bit dramatic, but at the same time, I can kind of understand why that's the attitude to it. What say you?
For me, I personally, I think it's unfortunately, with the way the regulations are currently set out, it is unavoidable that there are going to be issues like this, and certainly making adjustments to how slow the cars will be moving during harvesting is something that is really important for these regulations to be sustained. I think that we can't have crashes like that every weekend, and especially on a circuit like Suzuka, it's not too bad. But thankfully, something like Jeddah isn't on the calendar this year.
God.
But could you imagine it? Could you imagine if something like that happened at Jeddah?
Yeah, that's another comment I saw. Like people basically thanking Christ that we're not going to be racing at Jeddah, because if that had happened at Jeddah, imagine the crash that could have been from that.
It could have been catastrophic.
It could have been, catastrophic injury to potentially career-threatening.
Yeah,
I don't want to say the word fatal, but at the same time, I can't ignore the fact that it's in my mind just thinking about it.
It's definitely, unfortunately, it's kind of unavoidable for the moment, and there's no point making any changes too early or too prematurely.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you could risk just completely neutralizing the whole battery harvesting.
Yeah. The whole idea,
aspect
the whole idea was to basically set up overtaking opportunities, which is why some people have called it artificial overtaking. But at the same time, it has still given us some good battling, So it's a point of contention, but definitely something that's still kind of up in the air. But I would just like to add that since that crash, the FIA released a official statement regarding the regulations, and I'd like to just read a little bit of it here. And basically it says, since their introduction, the 2026 regulations have been the subject of ongoing discussions between the FIA teams, power unit manufacturers, drivers, and Formula One management. By design, these regulations include a number of adjustable parameters, particularly in relation to energy management, which allow for optimization based on real-world data. It has been the consistent position of all stakeholders that a structured review would take place after the opening phase of the season to allow for sufficient data to be gathered and analysed. A number of meetings are therefore scheduled in April to assess the operation of the new regulations and to determine whether any refinements are required. Any potential adjustments, particularly those related to energy management, require careful simulation and detailed analysis. The FIA will continue to work in close and constructive collaboration with all stakeholders to ensure the best possible outcome for the sport, and safety will always remain a core element of the FIA's mission. At this stage, any speculation regarding the nature of potential changes would be premature. Further updates will be communicated in due course. That is the statement in full. It was released on the FIA's official Instagram earlier yesterday. So, how do you interpret that?
I interpret it as just a very plain kind of PR statement. It's just essentially saying that we are going to look through things and see if there's anything we can change that will make it safer while not neutralizing the racing and losing any massive impact of these regulations, because a lot of time and effort has been put into this, and a lot of money as well from the teams into the creation of these new engines and battery systems and whatever. So it's definitely, they can't just up and change and say like, okay, you need to create, this new thing needs to be in the car now, and it'll do this, and your energy harvesting has to be limited to X amount, because it will just kind of like ruin the point. Then it will feel
Yeah.
even more artificial, and there is a point of how safe the improvement will make, like how safe or how much more safe the improvement will make the sport, but you have to kind of toss up on whether it's going to be worth it. And I definitely think that this is more of there's been a big incident. Everyone is pointing the finger at the new regulation battery harvesting. We need to put out something to say that we are discussing and have not finalized everything to do with the regulation, so things can still change to improve the incident. So I don't think it's much. It's a bit of a bit of just a PR thing.
That's my takeaway. It's a lot of words that effectively amount to not much in the way of substance. It obviously, like I say, suggests and like you say, suggests that nothing is being done yet, but discussions about what to do are going to be had. So it definitely its whole purpose, I think, is to basically let people know very gently we're going to do something. We don't know what yet, and we don't know how to tell you yet, but we'll do something.
But we'll sort something, yeah.
Yes. So that's it's definitely one, I think, the more serious takeaway from this race. And obviously, we both wish Ollie Behrman a speedy and safe recovery over the next few weeks. Obviously, lucky for him, the next 2 races have been cancelled, so he will have plenty of time to recover come the next race in Miami.
Indeed. Now, I just want to, this is more of a brief one. I did kind of talk about it earlier with my shock at Red Bull being lower than Alpine. But I want to just briefly mention, as a bit of a props, Gasly's fantastic start to the season.
Yeah.
With him being... There have only been 5 drivers that have scored a point in every Grand Prix, and that is currently the 2 Merc drivers, the 2 Ferrari drivers, and Gasly, which is mental considering how bad the Alpine was last year. Yeah, that's so strange. See, with a what was it, 10th in Australia, 6th in China, and 7th now in Japan.
Yeah,
and it's like mental how well he's been doing.
I think it definitely points out the difference that has been made by changing engine supplier as well. Obviously, before Alpine were a factory team, they supplied their own power units that were typically kind of renowned for being underpowered and a bit anemic compared to other offers at the time. And Renault, who is the parent company of Alpine, basically kind of scaled back its investment into Formula One. I think it kind of the attitude I get from Renault is that it's waiting for Alpine to slowly die in Formula One, so it can scale back its motorsport commitments. But this is obviously kind of done the opposite, because now that Mercedes power unit has completely reinvigorated the team and given them basically a new lease on life, and they're making a great use of it by fighting for points every race so far. So yeah, I think
for sure.
Great stuff for Alpine. I look forward to the rest of the season with them, and I certainly hope that they can do more with that car and that great Mercedes power unit.
Yeah. And final thoughts from the race. It's mainly just about Suzuka, a track that, in my opinion, hasn't delivered very well in recent years. Do you think this has been a better year?
I think this was... Aside from obviously the serious incident with Behrman, obviously that's an issue to address with the regulations and not the track. I think this has definitely been a better, I'd say better race than last year's. I can't cast my mind far back enough to say best race in the last 5 years, but I think it could be, but it's not, like I say, something I've got in my mind right now. Any other sort of mentions of. So yeah, definitely better than last year. What would you suggest?
I'd about say the same. It's definitely been an improvement from last year.
Yeah.
I think it's been improvement on years before from memory. There's been slightly more places that people can at least try and attempt an overtake at, rather than just DRS pass. Though there have been plenty of just like straight line speed, like burn all your battery, and then try and hold it into the first corner. Like that seemed to be the really common overtake, was basically just like do your best to overtake on the pit straight, and then into the first corner just try and not get passed back.
Yeah, I genuinely think I did enjoy some of the overtakes through turn one, like that one that Leclerc got on I want to say Russell, later in the race. That was around the outside. That was a really nice overtake. That reminded me of another Kimi. That reminded me of Kimi Raikkonen's overtake at Suzuka on Giancarlo Fisichella for the win in 2005, I think. It's either 03 or 05.
Yeah.
One of the two, because the McLaren was shit in 04. But great moves at certain points. And obviously the way that over the course of the race they identified new overtaking spots. I look forward to next year at Suzuka, I think, because Suzuka is a track that, like you say, hasn't really delivered much lately, but at the same time, it's a great track. It's delivered some great racing in the past, and I'd like to see it live up to that.
Yeah, for sure. Like it is it's a track with history. Other events there are brilliant. Certainly any of the endurance racing that goes on there. They do the motorcycle 8 hour there, and that's quite good. But on the whole, I'd say an improvement, but it's yet to see whether Suzuka is fixed or has gone up too much.
Yeah.
And now we got onto quite a brief segment where we are going to be talking about our predictions. So if you don't know and you're just listening to us for the first time, we do predictions for each race in the episode before, where we cover a couple of different grounds, those being the race winner, the race binner, who we just think someone who's had a bad weekend, the flop of the tops, who is the top team driver who has done the worst over the weekend, and then a wildcard prediction where we just kind of pick something that's not too out there, but nothing like really blatantly obvious that's going to happen.
Yeah, none of us are going to say Franco Colapinto wins the race, but at the same time, it's something that might be a more of a contentious point unless obviously proven later on.
Yeah, and not like Mercedes will be on the podium, because that does not count.
No, that's just that's an obvious.
That's a bit of a given at the moment. But for this, let's review our ones from Japan, and it is a grim sight. If my memory serves me well, our thought was that my thought was that the two Mercedes were going to collide, and there was going to be some kind of incident, which very much didn't happen. So for my race winner, I went for Charles Leclerc, which he got third, but nowhere near the lead. I know he was never in contention for the lead.
Yeah, he had some great pace, but it was not race-winning pace.
No. And he was easily outpaced by Piastri.
Yeah, I mean, I have no leg to stand on, because for my race winner prediction, I too put Charles Leclerc, believing that this was finally the moment at which Ferrari was going to show their hand and we were going to get some good racing and a Ferrari P1. So that was unfortunately, my hopes were quelled.
Yes, seemingly so. But moving on to our race binner, I went for Esteban Ocon, and while he didn't put in an absolute blinder or anything, he got 10th place, which is first points of the season for him, so I cannot call that a bad weekend. That is, like, perfectly reasonable, decent. He was faster than Behrman the whole weekend, so he had some amount of pace, so that is no point for me.
Yeah, well, even more of a big L is taken by me in race binner, because I put Oscar Piastri, who of course finished the race in P2. I would just like to contextualize this for viewers who didn't see last week when we made these predictions. But my round of predictions going into China were that Piastri was going to be on the podium after obviously failing to start the race in Australia, basically getting a bounce back, good moment, maybe be on the podium. And I really should have made that this week instead of then, because I was wrong then. He didn't start the race, and that made me think, oh, well, his bad luck's going to continue, and he's going to have some shit happen this time. which obviously this time round, he in fact did make it onto the podium.
It's-
So I'm
it's-
slowly starting to kind of crash out as I talk about it.
It's actually really funny now that I think about it, because in the for the Australian predictions, I said that Piastri would get a home race podium,
Yeah, you-
and he didn't start the race. And then in China, you said Piastri would get a podium for a comeback, and he didn't start the race. And now that you've said, oh, Piastri's going to have another bad weekend, he's instantly come back and got on the podium.
We've basically decided how Piastri's championship is going to go so far. I think next prediction I'm going to make is predict that he's the final runner, last place of the running cars, and then he'll win.
Predict that he detonates and he's going to win the race.
Yeah, exactly. He
We
just dies. He dies. Oscar Piastri dies. That's my prediction for Miami.
We need to do experimenting. More,
and then
more
he'll
testing
win.
needed.
And then he'll win.
But no point regardless.
No.
Ignoring or waffling.
Just to add to what we say, because we didn't explain, we are so for each correct prediction, we each get a point, and at the end of the season, after all of the prediction points have been added up, we've got like a little awards ceremony at the end of the year, and at that point, one of us will present the other who won the points competition for predictions with some sort of a prize. So there is some skin in the game here.
There is indeed. Now, moving on to our flop of the tops, the race driver who we thought from the top teams was going to do the worst. And I went for Kimi Antonelli, thinking that off the back of his debut win, he would have a bit of a worse for wear weekend. And I also thought that the two Mercs were going to crash, so he was going to be tangentially one of the worst of the top teams.
Yeah.
But that did not happen. He won the race, very much so.
In antithesis to that, I get a kind of almost maybe with my flop of the tops prediction, which was Max Verstappen, because albeit he did not have a great race, he only finished P8, which was an improvement off of his starting position of 11th, but he was stuck behind Gasly for basically the whole race and unable to get past him. But at the same time, especially given the pace of that Red Bull car, he did okay. He was obviously not the slowest of the top teams. His teammate Isaac Hadjar was expectedly below him in the finishing order. So after some discussion just prior to recording, we've decided I get half a point for that one. So
I think also because of the amount of whinging he has done throughout the weekend, he's not had a good time.
No, this is one to forget for Max, but not necessarily a flop.
If you think that Scobbert should be stripped of his point or his half point for this, then do comment.
Please don't. Please don't.
You gotta have public consensus.
Please don't. This is not a democracy. Please don't take my half a point.
We'll leave it up to them.
I've only got 1 point so far. Please don't take this away from me.
Now, moving on to our wild card. Neither of us got these right. I'll brush them through quite quick because they're not really anything too crazy. Mine, it was pole position doesn't win, which looks like it was on the books, but Antonelli then had the comeback with the safety car, so didn't come into fruition. And for you?
I put a double podium for Ferrari, obviously going off the back of saying that Leclerc was going to win, and with the hope that Hamilton would be P2 or P3. Obviously, we got one Ferrari on the podium, but Hamilton did not, in fact, finish on the podium, instead finishing in P6. So I also do not get a point.
And I believe that wraps it up for the Japanese Grand Prix. Now we move on to our segment about the other series discussion, where we talk about some other motorsport series that we personally watch and enjoy and recommend, and do a brief run through of the weekends that have gone on for their events. Starting with you.
So I am a big NASCAR fan, for those who are new to here, and I'd like to quickly just go over the event that happened yesterday, the Cookout 400 at Martinsville, which is the shortest and the oldest track still in use on the NASCAR Cup Series calendar. So it's always typically known for being a bit chaotic and providing some sort of, interesting moments. And
is Martinsville older than Indy?
Pardon?
Or do they not use Indy for NASCAR?
Indianapolis?
Yeah.
Indianapolis is at is used. It's the Brickyard 400.
Oh yeah, I thought it was the Brickyard.
No, but
Yeah,
Martinsville
no,
has been
I
around
thought.
for longer. You
Oh,
see,
fair enough. Fair enough. I didn't know
even though
that.
it's barely over half a mile long, meaning
Yeah,
you could
yeah.
fit about like 5 million of them within the infield at Daytona. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, it was won by Chase Elliott after a nail-biting finish, sort of similar to Kimi Antonelli. He was able to. He wasn't really in the run for most of the race. For like the first 300 laps, he wasn't really in contention for the W. But after a good restart after the last caution, he took lead and was never caught again. I was literally biting my nails because my driver, Denny Hamlin, was controlling the race from the very beginning. He led, I think it was 292 out of 400 laps. But at the end, obviously, Chase Elliott caught him and overtook him, which was a bitterly disappointing result as a Hamlin fan. But in other news there as well, Tyler Reddick, current championship leader on points at least, he scored P15. So some of the speculation before this weekend was in regards to how strong the 45 car would be on the short tracks, because it showed a bit of variance in how fast it's been, being very quick on the big race circuits like Daytona at the opening race, then also good on the road courses like COTA, but then kind of iffy on a shorter intermediate track like Phoenix. And then, once again, now at a true short track, he was not even in the top 10. So, interesting to see that, and we'll see how that plays out for the rest of the season. But one last point of note from the Martinsville race was some very crazy intentional contact by Bubba Wallace on Carson Hocevar, which caused a big crash, including several cars. I think it was about 11 cars involved, and it even resulted in Wallace not completing the race. Apparently, it was due to earlier contact when Hocevar he doored him through turn 1 and 2, basically meaning side-by-side contact. And that was the main rundown from Martinsville. Pretty good race. Not too much of note aside from those things, and I'm looking forward to what's to come in the rest of the season of Cup Series.
Indeed, fair enough. All right, now I shall be discussing MotoGP. We've just had the GP of the Americas held at COTA, which is another very good track. The sprint was won by Jorge Martin after, I think it was Bezzecchi and Di Giannantonio crashed on the opening lap. It might have been Marquez. But fantastic to see Martin back in form. I didn't actually get to watch the sprint, so I am unfortunately running on watching the highlights post for that. But in general, it's been another monstrous weekend for Aprilia. The main Grand Prix was won by Bezzecchi, who is now also, having taken the lead at Turn 1, has broken the record for most consecutive laps led in MotoGP after this race. So he is definitely looking to be the championship favourite for sure now. Still early in the season, but it really doesn't look like anyone can challenge him besides possibly Martin if he can get up to speed at some of the later tracks. Also a phenomenal and really unfortunate weekend for Ayagura on the Trackhouse Aprilia, who was looking on to be for his first podium. He was climbing through the field, some fantastic passes to get up to fourth, and then his bike just stopped working and dropped like a stone. The other thing I also want to mention is a brilliant ride from both the sprint and main race for Enea Bastianini on his Tech 3 KTM with a podium during the sprint, which he just seems to love pulling out of nowhere. He did the same last year at Brno, I want to say. And then sixth in the main race. And unfortunately, it just seems that the Ducatis have fallen back, and it is the year of the Aprilia. Wasn't much from Raul Fernandez, but I'm certain he'll come back in the following race. But that inter-team battle between Bezzecchi and Martin seems to be where the title battle is lying. And the podium for the main race was also rounded out by Pedro Acosta, who seems to be making it work on his KTM for the moment, but I don't think he's got the pace to really get into the championship fight at the moment. However, still early on, things can change.
No, I was sort of looking over your what you've written down for the MotoGP, and I got to say, I'm starting to show a little bit more of an interest, which is not something I expected from myself. It's not something that's I've not really been interested in bike racing in the past, so it
is definitely worth a watch.
I may give it a glance at certain points over the year, perhaps. But to conclude on touching on other series that we both watch. In this case, it is indeed a series that we both watch, IndyCar, and we just concluded the race at Alabama in the Barber Motorsport Park, which was won by Alex Palou, who was, I mean, it was pretty dominant.
He put in a very Alex Palou performance.
Yeah, I mean, the first
dominating all weekend.
Yeah, his first stint to the race was crazy. He was the last car to make the first pit stop. Running those, he was on used hards already at the start, and he managed to make those hards run, and retain the lead as well for the whole first half of the race, basically. So really great tyre management from Palou, and obviously shows why he is a champion.
Why he is,
and a multiple time race
shows
winner.
Why he's currently the reigning champ.
Yeah, exactly. Another. Also, it was a great weekend for Lundgaard, who finished P2 after a really great battle with Rahal in the closing stages. But another thing just to mention as well was in practice a few days ago, there was a really big crash for Scott McLaughlin, who ended up going through the catch fence and out of the track area, sort of going over the barrier, through the catch fence and out into the trees behind. So that was quite scary to watch, but obviously he was okay, and he was battling in the race. Not really. I think he finished P13, I think it was.
For McLaughlin.
Yeah, for McLaughlin. I think it was P13 he finished.
It's 16.
P16, never mind. But yeah, he was able to get some good battling in, a few good overtakes, so good to see that he was maybe not on obviously top form, but definitely not shaken by that.
But it definitely does bring into concern the quality of some of the protective features at Barber.
Yeah.
So that might need a looking at some point in the future, but
I mean,
regardless, good race. It was a good race.
Yeah, last point of touching on what I was just going to say was some great battles during that race. Kirkwood, Malukas, VK, and Ferrucci, other names that I wrote down and sort of picked out as producing some of the best battling. So that was a really good race, and IndyCar. If you don't watch it, if you're an F1 fan as well, I can't recommend it enough. It's obviously not a replacement for F1 in your life, but it's definitely a good sort of alternative.
Yeah, it's a good additional thing to watch on top. There's no. If you're able to give it a look, see, especially during this, I think this gap in Formula One, from now until Miami is the perfect time to reach out and look at some other motorsport series.
I think at certain points as well, certain events on the IndyCar calendar are shown on Sky Sports F1. So if you have access to the F1 channel on Sky Sports, there are. I remember last year we watched the Indy 500 on it, so it definitely it's a useful tool in your arsenal as an F1 fan to be able to tune into other race series as well.
Indeed. All right, I believe that wraps up the episode. I have actually, somehow we've gone the whole episode without mentioning it, so I do want to do a quick short piece here, and that is the fact that the championship lead for F1 has been taken by Kimi Antonelli from Russell, which we've somehow failed to notice, and that now makes him the youngest championship leader ever, which is phenomenal, and it very much speaks that if he wins this year, he will be the youngest world champion that we've ever seen.
By 3 years as well, isn't it?
Yeah, by a decent bit.
Yeah, so, yeah. Hopefully he continues to break records, and best of luck to Kimi Antonelli over the rest of the season.
Indeed, but now I think that kind of wraps up the episode. However, we do have a bit to say that although there is no Formula One in April, there are still plenty of other motorsport series that you can tune into and watch. There's certainly going to be plenty of series that we're going to be covering information from. We'll also be doing some other smaller episodes on slightly stepping outside things, like We're planning on next week. We are ranking all of the championships from like the championship seasons from
Yeah.
2000 forward, and we also plan on doing stuff like a livery ranking and some discussion on the karting scene and the ladder up to F1, as well as some going more into depth with NASCAR as the Talladega race comes forward.
Yeah, so that's the next 4 weeks of Tyre Straights episodes roughly gone over. Some changes may be made, but that'll fill the gap. So we'll still be active and producing weekly content. And if you are a racing fan, there's plenty to choose from coming up. I mean, endurance racing kicks off now with the World Endurance Championship as well as the European Le Mans Series, both of which are great watches if you have the time. So those both kick off in April. And then also we have the continuation of series like NASCAR with the spring race at Talladega being a big one for the season, as well as Formula E, MotoGP, and the World Rally Championship.
Indeed. And with that, I believe that's all we've got to say. Looking forward to... while this gap in F1 is a little bit irritating, looking forward to focusing more on some of the other series and doing some more non-review episodes for the podcast.
Welcome to the Tyre Straights variety show.
Yes, the Tyre Straights hour. But if there's anything in particular that you want to see us do, then please do leave us a comment, leave us a message on the Instagram, anything like that. But I believe that's all we've got to say.
Yeah, nothing more from me. I will shut my trap and let you conclude.
Yes, indeed. Then in which case, if you've gotten to the end of this episode, thank you very much for listening. Make sure to follow us on Spotify or YouTube or both, and follow the Instagram at Tyre Straights Podcast on Instagram. And that's a goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me.